It was early September 2025 when a rural corner of Georgia became the center of an international storm. At the sprawling construction site of a cutting-edge automotive dream, a joint Hyundai-LG battery plant promised to power hundreds of thousands of electric vehicles annually. Agents from multiple U.S. law enforcement agencies suddenly descended. Images released in the aftermath show workers in lines, shackled hands and ankles, surrounded by armored vehicles and blinking lights. The scale was breathtaking. 475 individuals detained, more than 300 of whom were South Korean nationals, marking it the largest single-site immigration enforcement operation in U.S. history. This sweeping raid unfolded under the shimmering banners of progress and investment. The $4.3 billion battery plant, part of a broader $7.6 billion development project combining Hyundai's EV manufacturing facility with the battery complex, was proudly touted as a game-changer for Georgia's economy, promising 8,500 jobs and a boost to rural Bryan County. Yet beneath the blueprint lay growing tensions. U.S. immigration authorities launched a months-long investigation into labor practices at the site, culminating in the September 4th raid. Witness accounts were chilling. Drones and helicopters hovered above as agents in tactical gear descended. Workers were led out in handcuffs, forced into lines, sometimes in scenes likened to a military operation. On the ground in Seoul, outrage surged. Korean nationals were shown arrested and restrained on video, fueling diplomatic fury and urgent responses from South Korea's government. Why were these workers targeted? Many were short-term specialists, engineers, installers, technicians, dutifully brought under B-1 business visitor visas or the U.S. ESTA visa waiver program, authorized for up to 90 days and meant for business tasks, not manual labor. Attorneys emphasized that such experts are often granted temporary entry to set up complex machinery and train local staff, a common industry practice, a nuance lost in the heat of enforcement. Labor unions in Georgia, however, claimed that these highly skilled workers were instead being used for construction tasks like pouring cement or fitting pipes, actions that would violate the terms of their visas. At home in South Korea, the response was swift and intense. President Lee Jae-myung called for immediate action, and Foreign Minister Cho Yun dispatched a task force and traveled to Washington to press for the release and safe return of his citizens. Diplomatic pressure yielded results. Within days, an agreement was reached to release over 300 South Koreans and repatriate them on a chartered Korean air flight. President Trump, driving the narrative back home, used the incident to double down on America First messaging. He warned foreign companies investing in the U.S. to follow immigration laws, emphasizing legal hiring and training of American workers while asserting at the same time that foreign investment was welcome if done properly. Meanwhile, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem expressed confidence that the incident would not deter continued investment in the U.S., a claim both economic observers and South Korean officials met with skepticism. In Seoul, the raid felt like a breach of mutual trust. It came on the heels of major trade and investment discussions, a $350 billion investment pledge and $100 billion energy deal made by South Korea, and high-profile summits including one between President Lee and President Trump as recently as late August. South Korean lawmakers warned that such unilateral actions could destabilize the alliance, undermining economic cooperation and complicating future investments. As the detained workers prepared for their journey home, rights advocates in the U.S. called for clarity around visa rules, fair enforcement, and humane treatment. Stories circulated of families frantic to locate loved ones, while some still employed workers questioned whether they could safely return to the site. Georgia's project, a symbol of rural revitalization, now faced operational halts, rising legal costs, and investor unease. Looking forward, the incident leaves open larger questions. How will U.S. immigration policy be consistently enforced without deterring strategic foreign investment? Can visa categories better differentiate between manual labor and highly skilled technical work? And how will this event shape the tone and trust of U.S.-South Korea relations moving ahead? In the end, the Georgia raid offers a stark reminder. In a world powering toward globalized industries and cross-border innovation, the enforcement of borders remains a sensitive, high-stakes arena. Missteps can ripple beyond detention centers into boardrooms, investor briefs, and diplomatic chambers, altering the course of cooperation just as swiftly as they halt production lines.